I never thought it would happen to me. Sure, you hear stories, but when it's your own life falling apart, it's a whole different thing. My name's Anish, and I've been working at the same hotel for years. I've seen my fair share of strange guests, but nothing prepared me for the moment that would change everything. It all started with a woman named Ria. She was a regular check-in, stay for a couple of nights, check out. No big deal. But over the past few months, things had started to feel off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but I knew something wasn't right. I'd notice little things, her strange looks when I asked about her stay, the way she'd leave without a word, then show up again as if nothing happened. But it wasn't until that last week that everything unraveled. That week, the hotel was packed, as usual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Guests would whisper behind my back, and a couple of them made snide remarks about the service. I tried to brush it off, but when Ria came back, I noticed something was different. She wasn't alone. I should have known something was wrong the minute I saw her. She wasn't alone like usual. This time, there was a man with her, a guy I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, a little too casual in the way he carried himself. Not the kind of guy you'd expect at a luxury hotel, especially not with Ria, who had always seemed a bit more uptight. They checked in without a word to me, just a glance and a nod. The kind of thing that made my stomach churn, but I brushed it off. I had a job to do. But as they headed up to their room, something in the pit of my stomach told me I wouldn't be able to ignore this feeling for long. I kept busy, doing what I always do, helping guests, managing the hotel, making sure everything was running smoothly. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Ria was playing some kind of game with me. She'd always been distant, but now, there was a coldness to her I couldn't explain. And I could have sworn I overheard her talking to the man, her voice muffled, but filled with anger. Later that night, I was called up to the floor for a complaint. The usual, loud guests, a mess left in the room. But when I entered, I saw something I'll never forget. I opened the door to their room with the usual politeness, ready for whatever mess awaited me. But nothing could have prepared me for what I walked into. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It wasn't the kind of stale hotel air that settles after a few hours, no, it was something worse. Something sharp, acidic. My eyes immediately landed on the walls. Ria and her new companion had made a bizarre scene of the room, but it wasn't just about the mess, it was the sheer disregard for everything. There, on the bathroom wall, stuck in place like some grotesque piece of artwork, was a used tampon. It was glued to the wall by what I could only assume was the blood. At first, I thought I was seeing things. It didn't make sense. Who would do something like that? It wasn't just a prank, it felt like a statement. But a statement about what? And why here, of all places? I felt my heart race. I stood there frozen for a moment, trying to wrap my mind around it, my body on autopilot as I reached for my phone to call housekeeping and maintenance. This was beyond anything I had ever dealt with. And as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of Ria. She was standing at the door with the man, just watching me. Not an ounce of remorse on her face, just amusement. I spent the next hour cleaning up the mess. Maintenance came up to remove the tampon from the wall, and housekeeping went into full damage control mode, sanitizing the bathroom and airing out the room. It was all mechanical. I didn't feel much other than a strange, mounting tension in my chest. My mind kept racing back to Ria's cold, amused look. It was as if she knew something I didn't. After everything was cleaned up, I still had to check in with her about the situation. She had been strangely silent after I'd reported the incident to my manager, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her than what I'd seen before. She wasn't just an odd guest anymore. She was something else. And that's when I noticed it, this wasn't the first time she'd done something strange. In fact, there were rumors about her. Guests had whispered about her, but no one could ever quite confirm what they had seen. I couldn't help but wonder, was she getting some kind of sick pleasure from watching me clean up after her mess? Was it personal? I went into the lobby, distracted, replaying everything in my head. My phone buzzed. It was Ria. "Can you meet me outside?" I froze, staring at the message for a moment. The last thing I wanted to do was face her, but I knew I didn't have much choice. I took a deep breath and stepped outside. I stepped outside into the chilly night air, unsure of what to expect. The hotel's entrance was quiet, the lights casting long shadows on the pavement. And there, standing by the side of the building, was Ria. Her silhouette was sharp against the dim light, the same cold, calculated look in her eyes. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, staring at me. I was waiting for her to speak, but she didn't. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken tension. Finally, she spoke, her voice as smooth and cold as I remembered it. "You didn't think I was just some ordinary guest, did you?" I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "You've been watching me for months, haven't you? You've been thinking you know everything about me." She paused, a slow smirk forming on her lips. "But you don't. You never did." I felt a shiver run down my spine. The way she spoke, it was like she had control of everything. I was no longer just a hotel worker to her. I was a player in whatever game she was orchestrating. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to remain calm. She leaned in, her lips barely an inch from my ear. "Because I can." She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, Anish. But you will." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and before I could respond, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness of the night. I stood there for a long time after she left, trying to make sense of everything. What the hell had just happened? The words Ria had spoken echoed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was caught in some twisted game that I didn't understand. She had always been a little off, sure, but this? This was beyond anything I could have imagined. She knew too much about me, about the hotel, about how I worked. And worse, she was enjoying this power she had over me. I went back inside, my thoughts spinning. There was something sinister about her, something that went far beyond simple hotel antics. It wasn't just about cleaning up messes anymore. It wasn't just about weird guests. I was in over my head. That night, I tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ria's face, that cold, calculating expression. I felt like I was being watched, like there was a shadow lingering over everything I did. I couldn't escape her. I spent the next day going through the motions, but nothing felt the same. I kept replaying our encounter over and over in my head. What did she mean when she said I didn't know what she was capable of? Was this some sort of threat? Was she stalking me? Or was it something even worse? The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just dealing with an unhinged guest. I was dealing with someone who had been manipulating me, testing me, for who knows how long. The next few days were a blur. I tried to act like everything was normal, working my shifts, dealing with guests, doing what I had always done. But there was a constant pressure on my chest, a weight that I couldn't shake. It was as if everything around me had changed, even if no one else could see it. I couldn't stop thinking about Ria. Something about her words kept circling in my head. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." What did she mean by that? Was she threatening me? Or was it something more personal? I started to dig into her past, the few details I could find. What was I really dealing with here? What had I missed? I spoke to a few of my colleagues who had worked at the hotel longer than I had, and they all had vague stories, strange encounters, odd behavior, but nothing concrete. It was like Ria had been a ghost in the system, always on the edge but never fully visible. Then, it hit me. It wasn't just about the hotel. It was about me. I had been so caught up in the routine of my job, so focused on the guests and their eccentricities, that I had failed to see that Ria had been manipulating me all along. Her behavior, her strange gestures, her subtle control, it was all part of a game. A game I hadn't even realized I was playing. And as I stared at the screen of my phone, scrolling through her social media profiles, I saw it. Pictures. Posts. Things that didn't make sense. She wasn't just a regular guest at the hotel. She was someone far more dangerous. And she was playing a long game, one that had been going on for months, maybe longer. The realization hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't just dealing with a troubled guest. I was dealing with someone who had carefully orchestrated everything. And now, she was pulling the strings. I couldn't ignore it any longer. There was something seriously wrong, and I knew I needed to confront it head-on. But just as I was starting to put the pieces together, another strange thing happened. I got a call one morning, an anonymous tip, they said. The voice on the other end of the phone was distorted, making it hard to understand, but the message was clear: she's not who you think she is. Watch your back. My mind raced. Who could have been calling? Was this another part of her game? Or was someone trying to warn me? Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in deeper than I had ever been in my life. That day, I began noticing more odd things. Guests acting strangely around me, whispering behind my back, casting glances. Even my coworkers started to look at me differently, like they knew something I didn't. The vibe at the hotel had shifted. Everything felt off, like I was the only one who hadn't been clued in on some secret. And then, that evening, it all came crashing down. I was walking through the hotel lobby when I spotted Rhea. She was sitting on one of the couches, but this time she wasn't alone. There were two other people with her, a man and a woman. They were laughing, casually chatting, but when they saw me, their expressions immediately changed. The smiles faded, and for a moment, everything went silent. Rhea's eyes locked onto mine, and once again, that cold, calculating look was there. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She wasn't just playing a game. She was in control. I was the one being watched. And in that moment, I realized something chilling: I wasn't the only one in this game anymore. They were all in it together. After that encounter in the lobby, everything changed. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched from every angle. Every glance from a guest, every word exchanged between coworkers, it all felt like part of some orchestrated plan, like I was a pawn in a game I hadn't even agreed to play. I started noticing small things. The way the housekeepers seemed to linger in the halls when they knew I was nearby. The way certain guests would suddenly appear at the front desk, asking me strange, indirect questions. It was like they were testing me, pushing me, trying to see how much I could take. I started to isolate myself more, not trusting anyone at the hotel. I was beginning to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. My shifts felt like they stretched on forever, each moment heavy with the sense that something terrible was lurking just out of sight. And then came the real blow. I was in the staff room, grabbing a quick lunch during a break, when I overheard a conversation between two of my coworkers. They were talking about Rhea. "She's been here before, hasn't she?" one of them asked, her voice low. "Not this hotel, but others. She has a reputation." The other coworker nodded. "Yeah. Same pattern. Always stays for a couple of nights, leaves behind a mess. Always a huge disruption. No one can figure out why she does it, but she's always moving to the next place. It's like she's trying to leave a trail, but never the same kind." I froze. "Wait, you've seen her before?" I interrupted, feeling a cold sweat creeping down my back. They both turned to look at me, clearly startled by my sudden outburst. The first one hesitated, then shrugged. "She's been around. You know, a few places here and there. There's always something weird about her." A sick feeling settled in my stomach. I had been right. Rhea wasn't just some random guest causing trouble at the hotel. She was a professional. A manipulator. Someone who had been doing this for years, leaving chaos in her wake as she moved from place to place, leaving no trace of herself except for the damage she caused. That's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with a crazy guest. I was dealing with someone who thrived on creating chaos. Someone who didn't care about boundaries, respect, or the consequences. She was a storm, and I was standing right in the middle of it. The realization hit me harder than I expected. Rhea wasn't just a chaotic guest, she was a master of manipulation. A professional troublemaker who moved through different hotels like a shadow, leaving behind nothing but confusion and destruction. And the scariest part? She had been doing it for so long that no one had ever truly stopped her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep the game went. This wasn't about me, or even about the hotel anymore. It was about something much bigger, something I didn't yet understand. I couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness. Every move I made felt calculated, as if she was pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating events with no regard for the people caught in her web. And the worst part was that I was part of her plan. Somehow, she had chosen me as her target. As I spent the next few days trying to piece everything together, I began to notice something else. A pattern. Each time I confronted her or made an attempt to stop her, the situation got worse. I cleaned up the messes she left behind, but it was like trying to put a bandage on a wound that was never going to heal. The damage was already done before I even walked into the room. I started to question everything. Was she watching me even when I didn't see her? Was she manipulating the guests to get what she wanted? Or was this all just part of a game where the rules didn't even exist? It felt like I was walking through a maze with no exit. And the more I tried to break free, the more I realized that I was trapped in this sickening cycle of control and chaos. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. By this point, I was no longer the same person I was when I first started working at the hotel. I was constantly on edge, always looking over my shoulder, unable to shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I walked through the lobby, I expected to see her, Ria, always there, her cold eyes following me from across the room. I had become obsessed with figuring her out, with understanding her motives, but the more I uncovered, the less sense it made. I started losing sleep. My co-workers noticed, but no one said anything. They probably thought I was just stressed, overworked. The truth was much worse. I was unraveling. I couldn't escape her, couldn't stop thinking about what she might do next. And then, one night, everything broke. It was late, well after midnight, and I was doing my usual rounds. Checking rooms, making sure everything was in order. I stepped into a suite to find the light on, and as I approached, I heard voices. Familiar voices. I froze. Ria was in the room, but she wasn't alone. She was with the same man and woman from before, the ones I had seen with her in the lobby. They were laughing, speaking in low tones, but the second I stepped into the doorway, everything went silent. They stared at me, the same cold, calculating expressions on their faces. Ria was the first to speak. "You're getting too close, Anish," she said, her voice soft, almost pitying. "You should have left it alone." I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I forced myself to speak. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Ria stood up slowly, crossing the room to stand in front of me. Her smile was small, but it was sharp, like she knew something I didn't. "I want you to understand, Anish. You're just like everyone else in my life. A pawn. A tool. And now, you're too far in to get out." Before I could respond, she turned to the man and woman. They exchanged a brief look, then the man stepped forward. "You're not just going to walk away from this. Not now." I could feel the walls closing in on me. My mind raced, desperate for an escape, but there was no way out. I was trapped in a game I had never agreed to play. The man and woman didn't move toward me, but their presence was enough to make me feel cornered. Every inch of space seemed to be shrinking. Ria's words kept repeating in my head, "You're just like everyone else in my life. A pawn. A tool. She'd put me here. She'd made me a part of this twisted game, whether I wanted to be or not." "Is this what you want?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "To ruin everything around you? To destroy people's lives for fun?" Ria smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "You think it's about destruction, Anish? It's about control. Power. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm showing you the truth. Life isn't neat, it isn't clean. It's chaos. It's messy. And that's where I thrive. I felt a sick feeling rise in my stomach. The way she spoke, so calmly, so confidently, it was as if she truly believed what she was saying. She was right about one thing: life wasn't neat, but I never thought someone could thrive on tearing others apart just to feel in control. This wasn't about chaos. It was about manipulation. She wanted to break me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of that room and forget everything. But I couldn't. I was in too deep now. I had to know more. I had to understand what she was really after. Why me? I asked, my voice hoarse. Why pick me? Why not someone else? Ria's eyes flickered with something: amusement? Pity? It was hard to tell. Because you were the one who noticed. You were the one who didn't just let me walk past you without a second thought. You were the one who saw me as more than a guest, more than a face in the crowd. You were the one who thought you could fix it. She let out a short, humorless laugh. But you can't fix something that was never broken. I felt a jolt of anger rise in my chest. I wasn't some naive fool. I didn't think I could fix anything. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not like this. If I can't fix it, I said, stepping forward, then I'm going to expose it. Her smile widened. You think you can expose me? It's already too late. You're already part of the story. And once you're in, you can't get out. The weight of her words hung in the air, suffocating me. I was in it now, tangled in her web of lies and manipulation. There was no going back. But still, some part of me refused to accept it. I had to find a way out. Ria's words kept ringing in my ears, louder and louder. Once you're in, you can't get out. It felt like a cruel joke, the walls closing in around me with no way to escape. But I couldn't give up now. I had to fight back, even if I didn't know how. For the next few days, I kept my distance from Ria. I didn't confront her directly again, but I couldn't stop watching her. I watched the way she moved through the hotel, how everyone seemed to bend around her. She had an uncanny ability to manipulate people, make them do what she wanted without them even realizing it. It was as if she had this hidden power, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I tried talking to the manager about the things that had been going on. The messes. The guests acting strange. But every time I brought it up, it was like no one else saw what I saw. They thought I was overworked, paranoid even. I started feeling like I was losing my grip on reality. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I thought I might be onto something. When I saw something in the guests' behavior that didn't add up. A look exchanged between them, a subtle change in tone when they mentioned Ria. It was all part of the plan. I could feel it. Then, one night, I caught her in the lobby, talking to a new guest. A man I'd never seen before. She was charming, so smooth in the way she interacted with him. It was like watching someone weave a web around their prey. But this time, something felt different. She looked up and caught my eye, and for just a moment, I saw a flicker of something else in her expression, something darker, colder. It wasn't just manipulation anymore. She was playing a dangerous game, and I was caught in the middle of it. I had to confront her again, to understand what her endgame was. But as I made my way to the elevator, I heard voices: Ria's voice, low and urgent. She was speaking to someone, her tone sharp, like she was giving orders. I pressed my ear to the door of the staff room, listening. The conversation was muffled, but I could make out fragments. He's getting too close. We can't let him interfere. My heart stopped. I wasn't just part of the story anymore. I was the obstacle. And if I didn't act soon, I'd be the one who paid the price. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't pretend that I didn't understand the danger I was in. I was too deep now, and if I didn't act soon, I might not have another chance. The fear that had been gnawing at the edges of my mind suddenly hit me full force. Ria wasn't just playing a game. She was trying to control everything, and I was in her way. I spent the next few hours pacing through the hotel, planning my next move. I needed to confront her, but I couldn't do it alone. I had to expose her, somehow. Maybe I could get evidence. Something concrete. But every time I tried to get close, she was one step ahead of me, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. I couldn't let her win. The thought of losing, of being trapped in her manipulative web forever, made my blood run cold. I had to make a choice, stand up to her or let her drag me into whatever sick game she was playing. That night, I gathered all my courage and went to the hotel's storage room, where I knew the security tapes were stored. If I could just get my hands on them, I could find the proof I needed. The tape that would show the guests' behavior, Ria's strange interactions with them, everything that had been happening behind the scenes. But as I opened the door to the storage room, I froze. The man and woman from before were standing there, blocking the entrance. They didn't look surprised to see me. It was as if they had been waiting for me. I stepped back, my pulse racing. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled, a chilling smile that sent a shiver down my spine. "You think you can stop this? You think you can change the game?" His voice was low, almost taunting. I tried to push past them, but the woman stepped forward, her eyes cold and calculating. "It's too late for that, Anish. You're already too involved." My mind raced. I had to act fast, but I couldn't make a move with them standing there, blocking my only exit. The walls were closing in once again, and I realized I had reached my breaking point. There was no turning back now. The tension in the air was suffocating. The man and woman didn't need to say anything else, their presence alone told me everything I needed to know. Ria's game had reached its final stage, and I was trapped in it, with no way out. My heart was pounding in my chest, the cold sweat on my skin making it feel like the room was closing in on me. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to go down without a fight. I took a deep breath and looked them both in the eye. "I don't care what game you think you're playing. I'm not scared of you." The man's smile widened, but there was no humor in it. "You should be." He took a step forward, but I didn't back down. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. Suddenly, I remembered something that Ria had said to me earlier. "You're just a pawn. A tool." It hit me like a lightning bolt. I was more than just a pawn. I was the one who had been looking for answers. I was the one who had been digging, who had noticed things that didn't make sense. And now, I was going to turn that into my advantage. In a split second, I spun around and rushed toward the security tapes, my hands shaking as I fumbled to unlock the cabinet. The man lunged at me, but I was faster. I grabbed the first tape I could find and shoved it into my jacket. It was my only chance. The woman lunged forward to stop me, but I kicked out, knocking her off balance for just long enough to escape. The man shouted behind me, but I didn't look back. I knew I had to get out of the hotel, away from Ria and her twisted web of control. I didn't care where I went, as long as it was far from her reach. I didn't stop running until I reached the nearest police station. I didn't know how much evidence I had, but I knew I had to show anyone what was happening. Ria had manipulated the system, used it to her advantage, but she hadn't counted on me. The officers were skeptical at first. They didn't understand the full extent of the chaos I had been living in. But when I showed them the tape, things began to shift. Slowly but surely, I was able to unravel the truth, piece by piece. It turned out that Ria had been manipulating people at various hotels for years. She had built a network of like-minded individuals who helped her move from place to place, leaving behind nothing but confusion and broken lives. But now, with the evidence I had, it was finally over. I don't know what happened to Ria after that. I don't know if she was arrested or if she simply disappeared. But for the first time in months, I felt a weight lift off my chest. The game was over. Looking back, I realize how much I've changed. I've learned that sometimes, you have to fight back, even when it feels like the odds are against you. And while it was a dark and twisted journey, I'm glad I didn't let her win. To anyone else who finds themselves in a situation where they feel trapped, manipulated, or controlled, don't give up. You might not always know how to get out, but never stop looking for the way. Even in the darkest moments, there's always a way out. And that's the end. Thanks for letting me share the story with you. Let me know if you need anything else.